I never imagined I'd become a target of the Homeowners Association president, but then again, I never expected someone like Diane Walters to have so much control over our peaceful little suburb. Most people in the neighborhood called her Karen behind her back, a nickname that fit her perfectly, considering her constant need to speak to the manager about everything. When I first moved into Oak Ridge Estates 6 months ago, I thought I'd found the perfect place to enjoy my retirement. I couldn't have known that the HOA would soon become the bane of my existence. And it all started with a bird bath. Yes, you heard that right. A simple stone bird bath in my front garden. According to Diane, it violated Section 14, Paragraph 3 of the HOA handbook. No outdoor decorative elements exceeding 18 inches in height without prior written approval. I had no clue I needed written permission just to let the neighborhood birds have a sip of water, but Diane was more than happy to educate me. I came home one afternoon to find a bright yellow violation notice taped to my front door like a badge of shame. When I confronted her about it, she smiled that tight, sugary smile of hers and said, "Mr. Reynolds, we take our community standards very seriously here." Her perfectly highlighted blonde bob didn't move an inch as she tilted her head with that smug, condescending grace. "Perhaps you should have read the full handbook before installing unauthorized fixtures." So, I did what any reasonable man would do. I removed the bird bath. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next few months, Diane seemed determined to make my life miserable. I got citations for grass being a quarter-inch too tall, for leaving my garbage bin visible from the street for more than 4 hours after pickup, and my personal favorite, excessive holiday decorations. Apparently, my modest string of Christmas lights was garish and disruptive to community aesthetics. But after 35 years working for the Postal Service, I'd dealt with my fair share of difficult people. I wasn't about to let Diane break my peace. I kept my head down, followed the rules, and told myself to let it go. After all, I was retired now. My monthly pension check was my reward for decades of hard work, and I wasn't going to let anyone ruin that. Then came the Thursday that changed. Everything, my pension check, didn't arrive in the mail. That was strange. In all my years with the Postal Service, I'd never known a delay on the first of the month. I figured maybe there was a hiccup, so I waited another day. But Friday came and went. Still no check. That's when I started to worry. I called the pension office. The representative on the other end confirmed it had been mailed on schedule. "It should have arrived by now, Mr. Reynolds," she said. "I can initiate a trace if you'd like." I agreed immediately. They started the process, but I knew it would take days, maybe even weeks. Meanwhile, bills were piling up and my checking account was running dry. As I sat by the kitchen table trying to figure out which payments I could postpone, I happened to glance out the window, and there she was, Diane Walters, strutting up to Mrs. Garcia's house across the street, clipboard in hand, violation notice ready to strike. There was something about the smug rhythm of her walk that made my stomach twist. The next morning, my neighbor Tom stopped by. "Hey, Jeff," he said, leaning on my fence. "Did you hear? My wife saw Diane taking mail out of people's boxes last week." I blinked. "Taking mail? You sure?" "Yeah. She thought maybe Diane was just picking up misdelivered letters, but it looked weird. She said Diane was moving house to house, like she was on a route." A chill ran down my spine. "Did your wife notice which houses she stopped at?" I asked. "Not exactly, but she said she started from the corner. Your house would have been on her path." That's when everything clicked. If Diane really had been taking mail, maybe that's where my pension check had gone. I decided to find out the truth. I called Mike, an old buddy from my postal days who still worked as a carrier in our area. "Mike," I said, "I need a favor. Can you tell me what time you'll be dropping mail here tomorrow and hold any official-looking envelopes so I can pick them up myself?" Mike didn't even hesitate. "You got it, Jeff." The next day, I sat by my front window, waiting. Sure enough, about 10 minutes after Mike finished his route, I saw her, Diane Walters, marching down the sidewalk with that same self-satisfied strut, pausing at every mailbox like she owned the street. And that's when I knew, whatever was happening, this time I'd catch her in the act. when Diane reached my mailbox. She did a quick glance around to make sure no one was watching. Then, with the precision of a practiced thief, she opened the box and began rifling through my mail. I hit record on my phone, zooming in through the blinds just as she pulled out an envelope that looked exactly like one from my credit union and slipped it right into her designer purse. My hands clenched. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't just another HOA infraction. This was mail theft, a federal crime. I immediately called Mike. "Mike, she did it. I got her on camera," I said. His voice turned serious. "That's bad, Jeff. I'll notify the Postal Inspection Service right away. They don't play around with mail theft." 2 days later, I got a call from Postal Inspector Sarah Martinez. Her tone was calm but direct. "Mr. Reynolds, we reviewed your video. It's clear that Ms. Walters may have taken not only your pension check, but also mail from several neighbors. We'd like your cooperation in setting up a sting operation." I agreed without hesitation. The plan was simple, but airtight. The pension office would issue a replacement check, this time fitted with a discreet tracking device. Inspector Martinez and her team would monitor the envelope in real time. If Diane took the bait, they'd have her cold. The following week, Mike delivered the check right on schedule. I saw him through the window, giving me a subtle nod before slipping it into my mailbox. And then the waiting began. An hour later, Diane's silver SUV rolled up across the street. She got out, phone in hand, pretending to snap pictures of my lawn, probably documenting violations, as she liked to say. But I could see her eyes darting to my mailbox. After a quick glance around, she walked over casually, as if on routine business. Then, without hesitation, she opened it, grabbed my mail, and stuffed the envelope into her handbag along with a few others. That's when it happened. A plain gray van pulled up quietly to the curb. 2 individuals stepped out, flashing badges. "Ms. Walters," one of them called. "I'm Postal Inspector Martinez. This is Inspector Johnson. We need to speak with you about the mail you just removed from this box." Diane froze mid-step. Her face drained of color, that confident smirk melting into panic. I was just collecting misdelivered mail," she stammered. "I was going to return it to the post office." Inspector Johnson's tone was firm, unshakable. "Ma'am, please place your handbag on the ground and step away from it." Diane's voice shot up into that shrill, familiar pitch I'd heard too many times in HOA meetings. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am? I'm the president of this HOA. I'll have your jobs for this harassment." But Inspector Martinez didn't flinch. "Ms. Walters, we have video evidence of you removing mail from multiple mailboxes in this neighborhood for the past 2 weeks. The envelope you just took contains a federal pension check with a tracking device. Mail theft is a federal offense punishable by up to 5 years in prison and fines of up to $250,000. By now, neighbors had started to gather, drawn by the commotion. One by one, doors opened and people stepped onto their lawns to watch the scene unfold. Diane looked around wildly, realizing she had an audience. "This is all a misunderstanding," she cried, her voice cracking. "I was just protecting community standards." The inspectors exchanged a glance, then asked her to open her bag. Inside were not only my pension check, but dozens of other letters and envelopes, credit card bills, bank statements, utility notices, even a child's birthday card. The evidence was undeniable. As Inspector Johnson placed the cuffs on her wrists and read her rights, Diane's composure completely shattered. The mighty HOA president, the self-proclaimed enforcer of neighborhood order, was being led away in front of everyone she once ruled over. And I'll admit, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness watching it happen. She'd let her obsession with control consume her until it destroyed her life. Later, a search of her home turned up boxes of stolen mail from across the subdivision, including my original pension check. She'd been too cautious to cash it, probably worried about getting caught. But now it didn't matter. The evidence spoke for itself. Diane Walters was charged with federal mail theft, a serious felony. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't having it, not after seeing the extent of her crimes and the methodical way she'd committed them. 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom as the judge read her sentence aloud. 2 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, a $75,000 fine. As the reality sank in, Diane's carefully polished image crumbled. Her makeup streaked, her composure gone. "But who will run the HOA?" she wailed, looking around desperately for someone, anyone, to defend her. The judge simply shook his head and called for the next case as the marshals led her away. And for the first time in months, Oak Ridge Estates felt quiet again, peaceful, free.